Good evening, boys and girls. Probably if you're a female, what am I saying? Probably if you're a female, it doesn't make any sense. If you're a female watching this, you may not relate to this or find this as um, helpful, so do as you please with this. But yeah, I got my candle for my different setup, and apologies for not posting in, what is it, a week? I was posting like bits and pieces this week, but not to my usual standard, just because I've had school, my examinations for certain subjects, tests, all that kind of clutter. So I kind of had to prioritize that for the time being. But we're here now, and yeah. But anyway, so external validation, something that for young men particularly is a thing that should be taken a bit more seriously than how it is taken at the moment. And the reason why I preach this is, and again, it's a bit unusual for a person who hasn't even finished high school to kind of talk about this, because it's just not, I would say myself, it's not really terribly normal. And I'm not trying to, talk myself up or anything like that either. I'm not trying to belittle anybody who is kind of gone through the pains of external validation. I just kind of like to mention it. But yeah. Anyway, to the point. The reason why I think it should be taken a lot more seriously is because it's something that progressively ruins a lot of men's lives, and it's kind of like a progressively silent killer. It kind of just picks away bits and bits and bits of you till you kind of have nothing left, and then it all crumbles down and just gets worse, just gets worse, just gets worse. And I identified this when I was younger. I just kind of, was realizing I wasn't really, and again, chasing happiness is kind of the worst thing you can do, because it just causes you to do all these stupid things which just kind of make your life even more miserable in the long term. But me being younger and stupider, didn't realize this, and I was kind of doing all this kind of stuff, being a people pleaser. And I'm not saying that if you get some external validation now and again, it's bad. It's not bad to be a person who's like trying to. Oh, I dropped my toothpick. It's not bad to, try and impress certain people. I'm saying when you kind of do that constantly and constantly and constantly again, and you end up in this whole cycle, and you just constantly do all this, you're always seeking that external validation. That's what causes people to go on this whole downfall. And a lot of people, misjudge this. They think that external validation, all the compliments from everybody, oh, am I good enough for this person, or am I good enough for that person, and that person at that moment says to you, oh, yes, you are, and whatever. That, in the long term, doesn't fill the hole. That hole could be, your pain, your anxieties, whatever it may be that's negative. It doesn't fill it. Yeah, it might temporarily do it, but eventually, just gets kind of bigger. The hole just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and you kind of need more and more and more and more and more of this. It just like kind of, inflates and inflates and inflates, and you're not, addressing the root cause. The issue is with a lot of people, especially young men, is that they don't address the root cause. They try and go for these other solutions, the cheaper solutions, the easier solutions. They don't try and identify the root cause. And, it's very hard, very painful to identify the root cause, and it will, crumble your ego for the time being. And I can say this for myself, it was horrible. I thought I was like, you know, I wasn't like super vocal about like having an ego, but like internally I was like the you know, that like that teenager who like was in good shape and stuff, and I thought I was like invincible in my head, you know. And then when I finally addressed the root cause, I realized that I'm really not this invincible teenager. I'm just a boy who's super has a super overinflated ego, who's incredibly stupid and is just like pretty much an asshole to people who are lower than him, and seeks all this validation from other people to feel good about himself, and eventually just feels worse about himself. So it was hard. It was hard, you know. It really shattered my ego, but that shattering caused it to, you know, kind of harden into this like it just like molded into this whole different thing that was just kind of almost invincible, but invincible in the sense of you know, not needing certain things to feel good about himself. And a lot of people seek all this, you know, they end up doing all this stupid stuff to kind of escape from their issues in their everyday life, whether it be, you know, they broke up with their girlfriend, or they didn't get that job, all that kind of stuff. They, instead of, you know, addressing the root cause of, you know, maybe you weren't the good partner in the relationship, or maybe, you know, you're actually just not good enough for the job, rather than blaming the employer or blaming the partner that broke up with you. People don't like doing this, and this is the reason why these people who don't like to identify these things also end up miserable, depressed, and having all these issues in their life. If you want to, you know, have an enjoyable, exciting life without having to, you know, chase happiness or whatever, stop seeking external validation. Actually address the root causes to your problems, rather than having, you know, all these things kind of trying to make you better in the short term, because it doesn't work long term. It just, you know, makes the hole bigger, and it eventually gets so big that it's, you know, you just can't really fill it anymore. Internal validation is the way to go if you really want the life you want, you know. People who chase all this cheap stuff, even money, they chase it too much where they just kind of feel empty inside. They don't have any purpose anymore. They don't have anything to kind of live for anymore. They don't have anything to discover. Once you feel, you know, peace, happiness. Now the happiness is, you know, a bit of a subjective thing, but once you feel peace, you know, more comfort in your own skin, all that kind of stuff all happens in turn. Once you have that all down pat, everything else kind of does it for you. You don't have to chase it. People misinterpret it, thinking that, you know, I need to chase this, I need to chase that. To a certain extent, yeah, you may have to chase it in certain circumstances, but in many cases, it's just addressing your root causes to your problems. So, hope you find this video somewhat helpful, and hopefully this all kind of made sense, because I love ranting and I'm a passionate talker. Anyway, have a good night.